You thought you'd never see me again, didn't you? Well, too bad. I'm alive.
Yes, I'm gonna keep using this joke cause it's funny. F you.
What it do, baby?
Yeah, you already know.
With Game Awards season still a hot topic, you'd think I'd talk about one of the many fantastic games that dropped this year. Like the remake to one of the most influential games of all time, or the sequel to what some people proclaim as the greatest video game of all time, or the latest installment of one of the most storied franchises in gaming history, and they're dropping a new game in the remake trilogy this year, right? Damn, that would have been smart. Instead, I want to talk about a little game that dropped in 2021. Damn. Is it really that long ago? I'm getting old. And that game is Kena, Bridge of Spirits. I don't know how well people actually remember this game. For me, it was one of the standouts when I first saw it at the PlayStation event that revealed the PlayStation 5, and I've been on the lookout ever since. Especially since the people developing the game is Ember Labs, who are most known for... well, actually, this is their first game. Yeah, Ember Labs is an indie developer, but if their name may sound familiar to you, you may know them from their viral short film, A Terrible Fate. The style of Zelda film we should have gotten and not a live action one that's gonna be boof. But after finding out it was these guys, I was locked in and waiting since day one. And honestly, I was surprised. For this being their first game and them being an indie studio, this is super high quality. From the gameplay to the cutscenes, everything about this one is great. I could start gushing about how much I like this game, but first, I think I should give y'all a little bit of story.
Let me show you how your pussy works. Since you didn't bring it to me first, I have lots of things to show you. If you're ready to learn, let me.
So we start the game off with a quote. I'm not reading this shit, but I'm gonna leave it up so y'all can do y'all thing. Got it? Good. And then Shorty drops into the cave like she just fell off the battle bus. And this is where we get introduced to our main character, Kena, the spirit guide. Why is she in the cave? What are we doing here? None of that matters right now. All that does matter is us getting out of this cave. And we were making good progress until we ran into this guy doing his best Kraven the Hunter impression. Fate Kraven throws us into what our first taste of combat's like in this game by fighting these wood monsters. And... you know what? No, I'm not gonna do it yet. So after swiftly handling these guys, we get hit with our first little puzzle. It's nothing too crazy. We just gotta light up some rocks and open some doors. And as we walk out this cave, I don't know, I just can't put my finger on it, but this feels very familiar. Like I've done this before. I don't know, maybe I'm tripping. We walk through the forest a bit more, and we run into these kids playing with this black creature. But when the kids see Kena, they run off, disappearing into this blue dust, which feels important, but we could talk about that later. So that little black creature that the kids was messing around with was called a rot wisp, and he turned into this little purple goop to hide from the kids, so we come over and set him free. So after this cute cutscene, the rot becomes our friend, and now we gotta search the area for more of these little guys. While we're searching, the game is actively teaching us more about the mechanics, but f all that, I really want y'all to peep this one. This game is so adorable, man. So after getting all the little dudes in the area, the game shows us that they're here for more than just looking cute. They have gameplay significance, and it's way bigger than I thought it was gonna be. But I'll say what these little guys can do for later. As of right now, we can use them to destroy the dead zone hearts, which are these flower looking things with zits in the middle of them. With that out of our way, we push forward by platforming and climbing through these structures until we run into our second enemy tutorial. The rot are scared of the tree monsters, and they'll go into hiding as soon as the fighting starts. So we need to attack them to build up courage, and when we build up enough courage, we can spend it on rot actions. And those rot actions are what we use in order to destroy the dead zone hearts when we're in combat. Otherwise, the enemies will keep spawning. So after smoking these dudes, me and my gang move forward, doing some more platforming and puzzle solving. We run into fake Craven again, and he summons a big ass tree monster this time. The Sprout serves as our first boss in this game. Obvious comparisons aside, we cooked this guy. Then the Jits, which we learn their names are Benny and Saya, come out of hiding. And we end up striking a deal. You see, Kenna has been looking for this thing called the Secret Mountain Shrine, and it just so happens that the twins know where it is. So, if we can help them find their older brother, they'll lead us straight to the mountain shrine. So we let the youths lead us to their village. And as we're leaving the area, Kenna looks up. We see the mountain shrine overlooking their small village, and then we get our title drop. I would say we've hit the end of the tutorial, and so far, this game is dope. I'm probably gonna say this at least 4 more times throughout this video, but the art style of this game is amazing. Like, it feels like I'm playing a Pixar film. If it wasn't for the frame rate lowering between gameplay to pre-rendered cutscenes, I wouldn't even notice. It's almost seamless, which isn't anything crazy nowadays because a lot of games have figured out a way to master loading behind cutscenes, but once again, they're an indie studio, and this is their first game, so I just can't help but be impressed. I will say, the story isn't nothing crazy. It's nothing that excites me, but it isn't bad either. Maybe it just needs a little bit more time to get into its bag, and I can't get into my Duffy either, because this is way too small of a section for me to give my full opinion on the game. So, let's continue onward.
Yeah, boy, I like to order.
Alright, what you want, mate?
I would like to have some curry chicken.
What you say, mate?
I said I want some curry chicken.
Eh?
Don't worry, Mr. Krabs. Me here with a man say. He say he wants some curry chicken.
What?
What about Coscudo? You fellas have any Coscudo?
Eh?
I really love Coscudo, boy. What about body? You fellas have any body? What about pillau? Or shatai?
I wanna.
Or some korma? Or what about some assumption, boy?
Oh, what a ras is that? Oh, what a Scott is a Coscudo? What a ras is a Coscudo, mate? We not get that here.
So after making our way down the hill and purifying the corruption in the village center, we meet up with Zaju. We need to talk to him because there's a barrier blocking our path to Taro. Also, while I was messing around in the village, I almost ended up getting softlocked because I kept respawning in this area with toxic water. But I was able to get the chest and load up the autosave, so I'm the GOAT. Zaju explains that Taro is dead, but his spirit refuses to move on, so we have to help him move on, cause you know, we're a spirit guide. It's kind of what we do. He hands us Taro's mask, and we get to work. One thing to note, the game tells us that spirit masks are helpful in finding hidden objects and finding rot and stuff like that, but I'm not gonna lie, I didn't use that shit once. And it's not like it's not helpful, it's just that I was able to find a decent amount of stuff on my own, so if I was going for like a 100% run, then maybe, but in a normal playthrough, you really don't need to use it like that. So we bust through the barrier and start making our way through the forest. And as we do, it starts becoming dark and stormy. And as the storm starts, we start seeing Taro's spirit. He begins screaming for his younger siblings. And as the storm rages on, we hear him scream more and more until we get to the middle of the forest and put Taro's mask on. So after that, Kenna says we need to get Taro's 3 relics in order to save him. But we don't even know where to start looking for the relics at. So one of the kids suggests we head up to Risu's house. So after nothing eventful, like a cave exploration or a boss fight happens, we climb up the mountain and we link with Risu. He starts giving us a rundown of what happened in the village. Apparently they went through a famine in which they lost a lot of people. The kids' parents being tragically among the fallen. Taro, being the oldest, had to look after them. You know, older brother shit. Risu then laments on how he wished he could have helped Taro more, but now he can only watch as the spirit is suffering. After Risu's done trauma dumping, Bro puts us on game, and we turn our staff into a makeshift bow with our spirit energy. With that, we have our first of 3 major upgrades. After the bow, we end up getting bombs and a dash, but in terms of helping us in combat, the bow is probably the most useful, cause now we have a way of attacking our enemies from a distance. With bow in hand, we can now head over to Risu's house and grab Taro's first relic, and after a pretty easy boss, hold on. Okay, so after a pretty easy boss, wait, what? Yo, nah, that's crazy. Hold on, wait. So like I was saying, after a pretty easy boss fight, we collect Taro's Sphere, which ends up being this knife that Risu made for him when he was a boy. Risu then tells us that the other 2 relics are in the corruption of the Forgotten Force, so we slide there. We can speed through the rest of the relics because I feel like I don't need to go into depth with each one. However, I do want to talk about one puzzle I encountered getting Taro's next relic. So, we had these 4 shrines to cleanse in order to get the relic, and 3 of them, they're whatever. I had no problems with them. It was a cakewalk. But that 4th one, man, that 4th one. I don't know what it was. Maybe I didn't get enough sleep, or maybe I wasn't in the right headspace, but that shrine just wasn't clicking with me for some reason. And for the people that play this game, y'all know which one I'm talking about, cause the video to solve it almost has 200k views. It's the fishing shrine. This shrine made me feel fucking stupid as shit, man. While it isn't a difficult shrine to figure out in hindsight, it still took me way too long to actually figure out what I was supposed to do here. There are 4 sets of candles in front of the shrine ranging from 1 candle to 4. Then, there are 4 gems around the lake that I need to hit with my arrows. Now, a normal person would probably think, hey, I need to hit these gems so they line up with the candles, right? And normally, a puzzle like that would have been light work. It would have been as simple as 1, 2, 3. But I don't know. I guess I was just off my game that day, cause I was stuck there for an embarrassing amount of time. So after that, we clear all the shrines, have a little boss fight, and we get the relic. Now, we can move on to the final one. The final relic is Taro's regret, and in order to get it, we gotta do a little more cave exploration to clear up the corruption in the area. But thankfully, the cave isn't that long. We meet with the boss, smoke him, and pick up Taro's lantern, which also happens to be his regret. Now, with all the relics in hand, we can finally slide to the fallen tree so we can begin the process to free Taro. During the process, Taro's lingering soul puts a one last ditch effort and fuses with the corruption, becoming corrupted Taro. Not gonna lie, that shit was kinda whack. Me personally, I would've dug into that Dark Souls bag and named something crazy like the Fallen Guardian of the Woods or Taro, the Fallen Protector, or something hard like that. But on the topic of this boss fight, it was pretty good. I really like the way the area is set up. From the rain effects on Kenna's clothes, to the darkened sky, to the way the dirt looks on her, it all gives off this epic feeling. The other corrupted bosses also get these cool domains. Unlike the bosses we fought before, they kind of just blocked off the path and we just kind of fought them. The corrupted bosses all have areas that hold significance to them and their stories, which is why I feel like they're higher quality compared to the others. I can also say that this is the first somewhat difficult boss fight in the game, and the influences of can really be felt here. I land the final hit, we call upon our little buddies, and we beat Taro. Now, we can finally get the full picture of what led up to Taro's demise. As I said before, the village that they're from, they had a devastating famine, and a lot of people fell ill. And Taro's parents being among the ones who passed. With resources running low in the village, and Benny inside to take care of now, They left the village to see if they can get help from Risu. Risu knew something was wrong, but when Taro pulled up, he sent him back to the village. And with that, Taro had no one else left to turn to. On their way back, they stopped to camp for the night. In the morning, Taro goes off while the yutes are still sleeping. And then it happens. A giant explosion from the mountain shrine. Yeah, that shit knocked that boy on his ass. When he woke, it was storming, and the land was covered in darkness. Now, I don't know if he means that the mountain shrine did this, or the explosion knocked him out for 12 hours. So I'm gonna go with the latter because it's funnier. He searched everywhere for them. In the process, he injured his leg. The storm lasted for days, and with no sign of his brother or sister, Taro feared the worst. He had failed his brother and sister, something he can never forgive himself for. Now, it's not explained what happens to him next, but with the village destroyed and the just nowhere to be found, we can likely assume what happened. Kenna tells Taro how much the kids knew that he cared for them, how what happened in the village wasn't his fault, and that Benny and Saya still need him. You know, real therapist shit. We reunite the family, and we get a real wholesome moment of everybody hugging. Then Saya walks up to us and tells us,
I'm sorry, Kina. We can't take you to the mountain shrine.
It's okay. You have to go now.
And with that, we free Taro and reunited Benny and Saya with their older brother. Okay, that's the last one.
They say I'm fat phobic. Okay. What is that? I have bigger problems in life. I'm poor. I'm poor. That's what people don't understand with real life and social media. I'm poor. I live in Flatbush. Soon as I step outside every single freaking day, it's a bomb. It's a bomb. Excuse me, sir, you have $1. You have $2. I experience so much trauma, battles, obstacles leaving my house. You're fat phobic. How is that affecting me? At least I'm not wobbling. At least I'm not wobbling and gobbling.
Phew, that was a lot, but it was necessary for me to paint the picture. I've seen reviews for the game that say the story was boring or uninspired, but I can't necessarily agree with that. Now, I'm not saying it was some super thought-provoking narrative. What I can say was I was genuinely interested in the story to the point that I was disappointed that it didn't expand on certain plot points more. Like, there's this one part later on in the game where Kenna finally climbs the mountain and she meets with the final boss. Spoilers, it's a Craven guy we met in the beginning of the game, but we'll get into that later. And she gets bodied, like bad. But as she gets sent into a dive to the heart, the boss alludes to the fact that she's hiding something in her past. When we wake, we find ourselves in this strange place, and we see a young Kenna asking these ghostly figures for help finding her dad. Like, this is sad, but it gets even sadder when you know that Kenna's dad is dead, and we don't know when he died. It's never stated. Hell, I thought he died pretty recent too. But with this section of young Kenna looking for her dad, it suggests otherwise.
My dad is gone. Can you help me find him?
Don't worry. We can look for him together.
This is his staff. He can't get home without it. Can you carry it for me?
Which is dope and all, but I kinda wish we got a scene where we were rolling with young Kenna and get a cool scene where her coming to terms with her dad's passing. Instead, we get this.
My father told me stories of the sacred mountain shrine and its connection to the spirit realm. After I lost him, I set out to find the shrine, hoping it would make me a better spirit guide. I've always known he was gone, thought if I could help enough spirits find peace, he would see me and be proud.
Many spirit guides have come before you, but they have all failed. Your father will be proud of who you've become.
Which isn't bad, but I feel like we could have expanded on this part of the story a little bit more. Like, it would have been dope to see Kenna actually confront her past, and how her dad dies really affects her mental and her being a spirit guide. But you know, Zazu action as kind of a mentor figure to her kind of works too. And now that I think about it, this game is pretty dark. It's not the craziest thing, but everybody kind of got the bad ending until Kenna comes around and fixes everything. It hit me when I saw the just go with Taro. It all just clicked that everybody in this game besides Kenna is dead. Like, they all met with a terrible fate. The next two bosses also have messed up ends too. Adira is the next boss, and she was a blacksmith who wanted to harness the power of the mountain shrine to help the village. Unfortunately, the power of the mountain shrine was weakening, which caused the same problem that Taro talked about earlier, like the land becoming poisoned, crops not growing and such. I feel like I should mention that all the events that are happening to the bosses are happening at the same time. Like, if that wasn't obvious. So, Adira's shorty, Hana, left by boat in order to search for food and supplies in order to try to save the village. But after months, Hana never returned. Adira didn't want to believe, but after months, she feared the worst for her girl. The village state also worsened, but Adira vowed not to leave without her boo. So she set out to create a lighthouse to guide her shorty back. As she was building the lighthouse, she saw something flying over the mountain shrine. And then the same shockwave that took out Taro hit Adira. The lighthouse that was being pulled up began to fall, but then Adira saved it with a move that honestly should have ripped her arm clean off. The lighthouse was built, but Hana never came back, so her and Adira never reunited. Kenna obviously does reunite them, but you see what I mean though, like these are happy endings with an asterisk on them. I would get into the final boss, but I've been putting off something for long enough. Listen, there's a reason why this game got labeled as Pixar Dark Souls.
Numerani. Anata no Mitaru Shutatai. What's next? Karuti. Fugashiki Shiratati Daki.
I'm gonna let y'all in on a little secret about me. I don't like Souls-like games. I know. Crazy, right? Now, I'm not saying that they're bad games. I mean, everybody in the industry try to copy them, so they gotta be good. So, I just chalk it up to them not being for me. Funny enough, I've always viewed those games as the evolution to games back on the NES and SNES. Like, the best comparison I could probably give would be Punch-Out. Both are games where you have to fight bosses back to back to back, where each boss progressively gets harder with each fight, and the only way to beat them is to learn their patterns and capitalize on their mistakes. The only difference is Punch-Out throws you from fight to fight, whereas Souls-likes have levels/overworlds that you have to get through. Now that I think about it, Mega Man probably would have been a better example, huh? But what does all this have to do with Kenna? Well, the only thing I heard when this game dropped was people calling it cartoon Dark Souls, or this is what happens when Pixar meets Dark Souls. And I'd be lying if this didn't dissuade me from buying the game at the time. And now that I've beaten the game, they were kinda right. Kind of. Like, the Souls influence is undeniable, but it's mostly present in the combat and in the bosses. As someone who loves action and action-adventure games, I tend to stay more on the side of games like DMC and Kingdom Hearts. So that's probably one of the main reasons why they're not my cup of tea. I also did have to get adjusted to all the dodging and rolling around, but once I did, the game was a cakewalk, which is why I say kind of on the Souls-like comparison, because I was expecting the game to be way harder even though I was playing on normal. But since one person can play on Apprentice Spirit Guide, which is easy mode, and another person can play on Expert Spirit Guide, which is hard mode, they're gonna have two totally different experiences. Unlike Souls games where the difficulty is synonymous with the overall experience. Two people's experiences are going to be way similar in terms of combat in a Souls game than in this game, just because Souls games not having a difficulty setting. I always find it funny when a game gets the "this is the Dark Souls of X" or "this is the blank Dark Souls" comparisons. It's either because of its art style / direction, combat, or difficulty, which I think this game only has one, and it's definitely not its difficulty. The only parts that I thought were remotely difficult were the final two bosses or the challenge runs, which by nature are designed to be challenging. There's a few more comparisons I can get into, like how there aren't bonfires, but there are these checkpoints every time you enter a new area, and there are these spots to meditate where you can get your full health back and even get more max health. Or how there aren't really flasks for you to heal, but when you get into combat, especially against bosses, there's a limited number of heals for you to use in the area. Instead, I'd rather talk about what sets this game apart from Souls games, like the skill tree. The skill tree, while not as robust and deep as other games, still gives you some neat stuff to play around with, and it makes Kenna feel more like a complete and funner character to use in combat. The way you get these upgrades is through collecting karma points. You can find them throughout the world by doing small things such as finding treasure, doing challenges, defeating enemies. However, not everything is unlocked from the start though. You're gonna have to level up your rot level, which is unlocked by, you're not gonna believe this one, gang, collecting rot. Crazy, I know. Some of the skills are locked behind story progression, like I mentioned before, the bow and the bombs. Some of my favorites include the perfect charge, which is when you release the heavy attack with perfect timing and you get to do massive damage, and the rot infused arrow, which is when you fully charge Kenna's bow to shoot a powerful arrow that pierces through enemies. It also does massive damage. What can I say? I just like seeing health bars get deleted. This game is also very bright and colorful. Like, normally I wouldn't point some stuff like that out, but in Souls games, it's very dark and gray. The only time it gets dark in Kenna's is when you're in the boss area, which, you know, makes sense. There's also fun stuff for Kenna. Like, she has a bunch of different outfits that she can use. But the way you have to unlock these is through the previously mentioned challenge runs. I believe you can get one through the deluxe edition of the game too. And some of these are pretty hard too, like the bomb maker or the woodsmith, or my personal favorite, the ranger. The rod also get different hats to put on them, so you can keep track of your favorite, I guess. I don't know. I feel like I've gotten everything off my chest, but I still feel like y'all should know how this game ends. So, let's hop to that. So, after we've collected all of Toshi's relics, yeah, he's the final boss. You know the guy I've been calling the Fake Craven this whole time? Yeah, he's their leader. We head back up to the mountain and meet with him again, and the final boss battle begins. Not gonna lie, he was beating my ass. I'm not afraid to admit it. That nigga had hands, but after I locked in, we smoked him. Kenna then tries to finish off Toshi the same way we finished off all the rest of the bosses, but Brody just parries that shit like it was nothing. Not only that, he ends up taking the rod away from us as well, and then he starts talking about how he's gonna show us their true nature, and then he just disappears. Now, rotless, there's only one way for us to move. We dash into the portal, and we finally get our first glimpse at the sacred mountain shrine. But as we get closer, this red light starts coming from it. Toshi comes back and gathers all the rots he stole from us to summon the actual final boss, Corrupted Rot God. Yo, their naming bag was a ass. This fight was actually really dope. To the atmosphere, to the theming, everything about it was great. Honestly, it's probably my favorite fight in the whole game. While the Toshi fight was cool, it never felt like a final boss. I thought it was gonna go into like a second phase, but it just never did. However, this boss got some good phases. Phase 1 is nothing crazy. We just gotta hit the purple glowing eczema on him, and then he takes us to the pocket dimension where we gotta fight waves of enemies. Yeah, be sure not to die here, because if you do, you gotta restart the whole thing over again. And when I say the whole thing, I mean the whole thing. It doesn't matter where you were in the fight. If you lose, you gotta go back to the first phase. But after we beat this phase, we get a little bit of our buddies back. Side note, I also really like it in boss fights where you lose something you had throughout the whole game and then you slowly get it back throughout the fight. I think that's really cool. In phase 2, he gets some new attacks, but it's more or less the same thing. Just shoot the eczema and we go into the pocket dimension. But instead of being in the pocket dimension and fighting waves of enemies, we have a little platforming section where we have to use all the abilities that we got throughout the whole game in order to traverse. This one right here was probably my favorite phase. My only thing is that I wish it went on longer, and then at the end you had to fight like a little bit of enemies, and after that we get the rest of the rot back and it's on to the final section. In the final phase, there's no more perp on them, and now enemies are starting to spawn inside the circle too. And honestly, at this point I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I'm not gonna lie, they had me out there doing cardio. I was looking lost. But as the boss started to charge up, these glowing spears appeared on his back, and that was our win condition. We unlocked the spears in his back and allowing us to get our final hit in, thus ending the boss fight. All that's left is to find out what drove Toshi to do all this. Toshi, being the leader of his people, felt like he was failing them, Once the power of the mountain shrine began to fade, Zaju, second in command and one of the elders of the village, knows that the rod is linked to the mountain shrine and it needs time to heal. So he thinks that Toshi should lead the people away from the mountain shrine. Toshi didn't take too kind to that suggestion, so he hit him with that. And Toshi heads up to the mountain shrine to confront the rock god. Like he ain't did nothing wrong. Like he ain't just slime his OG. I don't know, man. Toshi kinda crazy. He just pulled up on the rock god and wanted all the smoke.
Don't turn your back on me. Listen to me.
And ultimately, Toshi would get the upper hand on the god.
This is it.
So all of this happened because of Toshi's unwillingness to change. Damn. Bro kind of a dick, but our girl kinda hits him with that talk no jutsu, which at this point is on par with Naruto's, allowing Toshi to heal. Now, with everybody from the village gone, Zaju leaves us with these final words.
Goodbye, Kana. There is only one spirit left for you to help.
We head up to the shrine, we say our goodbyes to our little guys, and we start our final meditation. Kana, Bridge of Spirits, is a good game. Now, of course I have my issues with it. Like, me not being the biggest fan of Souls combat was kind of a turnoff, and I do wish that the story had better world building, cause the way it's set up right now, Kana's like the only living person in her world. It also would have been cool to see her interact with other spirit guides or somebody else that's just alive, you know? They also have stuff that I really enjoyed too. Like the story that we did get had me invested from start to finish. It wasn't some knock your socks off amazing narrative, but it was a good time. Graphically, the game was amazing. The art style that they chose was really good. The music, while I'm not rushing to listen to it, was a very good fit. There's some really good stuff here. And probably my favorite thing about this game is that you can see how much inspiration they took from Majora's Mask. It's actually kind of crazy. Like, our protagonist starts off the game falling into a mysterious place. Our equipment, we have a bow and arrow and a bomb. Obviously, the masks, even though they don't have as much significance. And it all contributes to probably why I like this game as much as I do. All we're missing is a musical instrument in a world-ending event, and Nintendo might be knocking on their door. But the biggest one is probably the overall theming. Like all of these beautiful and colorful environments on the surface, but if you look a little deeper, you'll see that this game is about grief. That holding on to the pain of your past can never grant you your happy ending, or the happy ending of others. You need to let go of that past, move on from it. Only then can you start healing. Or something like that. Also, the ending sets them up for a really good spot if they ever do want to come back to this franchise. But seeing how it's been 3 years since the release of the game, and from everything that I can find, they have no plans for a follow-up, I wouldn't hold your breath. But hey, if there's ever a Kena 2, you know I'm on board for it. I guess this is the part where I would give it a score. But this isn't a review. So instead, tell me what you thought about it down below. Was it ass? Was it gas? Or was it somewhere in between? Let me know.
Do you need help?
Even now, it's hard to forgive myself. You carry the same energy that flows through these roots. Somehow I felt leaving will make me forget never shared would slip away.
Your father